there and welcome. And thank you for taking time out of what I am absolutely sure is a very busy schedule to have a conversation with us about a special program. So we'll start with the basics. Of course, I'm Renee Pardo. I think we've met in the past. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at the board?
Yes, so my name is Jeanne Duquette, and I am what we call a learning specialist. My background is all in everything that's related to what you call special education. And my role here is, one of my roles is to work with power school special education. So what I guess my role is to work with, I'm not at the district, I'm at the department level, so the ministry. And so my role is to work with the people from the districts and to determine what we need in PSSC, what's working right, what needs to be changed, what needs to be added or whatever, to make sure that we get what we need for our schools. And so we work together and we see what works and what doesn't, and what needs to be. You'll have to excuse me because I think in French. And so the words come up in French, and sometimes I think, I don't know how to say that in English, so I just skip over the word.
That is quite all right. I love it, actually. I wish that, because I wish I was bilingual. So take your time. So New Brunswick, tell me a little bit about the district, the size, the number of teachers, the number of students.
The way it works in New Brunswick, and we're quite different from, I'm going to say the world. But anyway, from anywhere else in Canada and the United States, and I think a lot of other places, is our Department of Education. Because in Canada, first of all, we don't have a national Department of Education. So every province has their own department. And so in New Brunswick, what makes us different from other places is we have the Francophone and the Anglophone schools who are served totally differently. So it's almost like having two provinces within the one province. So we work collaboratively, and Sandy Nickerson, who works in the Anglophone sector in New Brunswick, she and I work together a lot. But when we developed everything we needed in the PSSE, we identified what we needed in the Francophone schools, and they did what they needed in the Anglophone schools. So having said that, the population of New Brunswick total is a little over 800,000. So we're not a big province. We're under 1 million. And within the province, 1/3 of that population is a Francophone population. So, we're less than 300,000 Francophones in New Brunswick. And then, when you go to kids, like I said, I don't have the exact number, but, and so, we're less than 300,000 Francophones. So then you think of the children in there. We have, in the Francophone sector, we have 3 school districts, and we have a total of 95, I believe, schools.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. And it's all coming back to me now, the Francophone.
Yeah. It's very, and we always have to specify, because most people go, yeah, we get it. Yeah, we have Anglophone and Spanish schools maybe in certain areas of the United States. And but it's not just that. It's that we function totally different, which was a big thing when we developed PSSC, because we have the whole PLP, as they call it in English, in the Anglophone sector, was not one PLP, it was 2 different PLPs. And so it was a big...
That's right. It's funny the way you, as we're discussing it, it literally is sort of flooding back to me, and that all out, and how interesting it was during that period. So that's great. Yeah. That's right. And now remind me, so you're using the spec ed, the special education module. Is that the only module that you're utilizing right now? Because I recall maybe conversations around the response to intervention things, but I'm not sure if that ever went that direction.
No, we don't have, no. Okay. The only ones, other than the special education, there's the basic power school, right?
Sure. So the student information system.
Student information system, yeah. So we have, those are the 2 that we use. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
In both sectors, yeah.
So remind me now, and again, it'll flood back slowly but surely. What were you utilizing prior to transitioning to Power School Special Program?
So the Anglophone sector had a system that they were using. We had none in the Francophone sector. So we were actually still using Word documents. That's what we had. So we
Yeah.
had no data, absolutely no data. We had no, we were, I always said we were still living in 1980 is
Well, you
where we
had a
were.
whole filing cabinet full of papers you could go back to if you needed to. So,
Yes, yes. And I don't know if you can tell, but I cleaned out my office. I got rid of all the filing cabinets now and all of that
must
stuff.
feel
Don't
so
need those
light.
things anymore. Oh, yes. I
Yeah.
can almost dance in my office now.
Oh, that's great. So that was a big transition for you guys, for
For
sure.
us, it was huge.
Yeah,
Yes.
moving from paper to electronic system. So that being said, while I think it's probably hugely beneficial from, a paperwork standpoint and all of that, I'm interested to know a little bit about how the staff took that transition, because even if it's to a more streamlined system, there's growing pains, no matter
Yes.
what. So tell me a little about what did that transition look like for you guys when you moved from the paper-based over to special programs, which is web-based and fully, very technical.
Yes, very technical and lots of details in it and everything. And when we first started giving training to the resource teachers and the principals, we were a little anxious. We were a little worried that they were going to
Sure.
say this is complicated and there's too much stuff. And actually, at the very beginning, when we started doing the training, they were saying, oh my God, this is so much fun. Look, I can do this, and look, I can do that. And look, I don't have to do this 3 times and it's here automatically. And so the first reaction was really good. And then when they started really using it and we were working with them to say, okay, but remember now you have to put this information here now. You don't write it out in a Word document, because then we were getting frustrated. People were telling us that they were frustrated because they felt like they were doing things twice, until we realized that they were still doing it in Word documents and then copying it into what we call the PSSC. We've called it in French mon appui, which means my support. And so, they were doing it twice. So then we had to work a lot with them when you're really used to doing something a certain way, it's very difficult, isn't it, to change?
Absolutely.
So then they started changing, and then they started, then the frustrations started coming out even more, because it is not complex, but there's a lot in it. And so, yes. Yeah. So where do I click for this, and how do I click? And is there such a thing as this and that? And where can I find it? And then they started feeling a lot that they were filling out documents for the sake of filling out documents. And why do I have to fill out all of this detail? And which is when, at that point, we started talking to them about reports. So you don't have, the reason you're filling out all these details is at some point you'll be able to get a report and say, how many of my students are doing this or need that, and so when they started seeing the reports, then they really started going, okay, now I understand why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. And of course, the other thing that was difficult in the beginning is because you're just starting, you are inputting a lot of information at the beginning because you're doing everything all at once.
Exactly.
And so we had to remind them, within a year or two, you won't be doing all of this because it'll be done already, and you'll just be copying, or you'll just
can copy from last year. And then the time saving. It's one of those things where the work you put in up front really pays off in the long run, but it is a little work fun, especially when you're moving from paper. So that's very, very interesting. Mm-hmm. So given that, what kind of advice would you give to other school districts or boards that are thinking about transitioning, whether it's from a paper-based solution or something else? What advice would you give them about that transition?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think on the one hand, of course, it's taking it slowly. Once you've developed the tool, it's taking it slowly and maybe going one step at a time. And that was one thing that we did. I think that we did right, is there are many documents that you can fill. You don't need to fill them all. You only need to fill these 2. That's what we did the first year. As we said, these 2 documents are the ones that we require. Everything else you can keep doing Word document if you want. And of course, what they did was they did those 2 documents, and then they'd say, wait a minute, but what's this other one? And we'd say, oh, well, that's for case conferences, but you don't have to fill that one out. You can use it. Wait, maybe I do want to fill it out now. So it was giving them, I guess, a taste of what it is and making them want to go.
Idea.
Yeah. And for those who don't like the change, then it's okay. They didn't feel like they were pushed into doing everything all at once, so they could take their time.
That is great advice. That's fantastic. And it's funny because I had a customer interview yesterday, And when I asked that same question about advice you would give, the thing she said was, my advice would be crawl, walk, run. Uh,
Yes.
I didn't do it at all one time. So it's funny the way I've seen very reoccurring themes as
Yeah.
we folks and they've gone through that
Hmm.
transition. So but that's great because you're right. You're going to have some people that are self-starters and they want to dive right in and get ready.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then be people that are maybe not as comfortable with technology and it's taking them a while to get there and they don't feel like they're under the gun to have to do that. So I think that's
Hmm.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
And one thing that we did do that we thought was a great idea and turned out it wasn't really that great was because when in the very beginning, one of the first things you do is you have to input all this information. It's not transferred. It was paper documents. So, but even if it was another technology, it's not always possible to just transfer the information. And so what we wanted to do to make things easier for schools was to hire people just for maybe 1 month. And these people were hired to input some of that information. So the schools would
Okay.
give them the information, they would do the inputting. The problem with that, which sounded great at the beginning, because then the schools were going to start, they were going to start and everything was going to be there. But that's just it, is they started and they'd say, okay, but the person put it here, but I would have wanted it here instead of here. And so they ended up having to correct things. And
No.
so,
Mhm.
because sometimes, even if the form is there and even if it's all set up, you can use it different ways. Different people will choose to use it different. And then a lot of schools went, well, this was no use. We just have to redo everything now. So I don't
Well,
know. It's not the perfect idea that we thought it was.
it is, if you're familiar with this saying, is no good deed goes unpunished. And
Yes, exactly.
and that just sounds like, because when you were saying it, I was like, this is a fantastic idea and a little bit of a backfire, but maybe overall it was worth the work that they didn't have to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it wasn't worth at all. Some of it was okay. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, being that you moved from paper to an electronic system, I mean, certainly I can imagine one of the big benefits is just you don't have all that paper anymore, and you've got the data. Tell me, are there any other benefits that stand out to you, that things you really love about the system having moved?
Yes. One thing, because and it just so happens that we are right now in a consultation process with the schools to see what they like and what they don't like, and because sometimes what they don't like is what they don't understand. And so and one of the things that has come up that the two things I think that have come up right now that are the most popular answers that they really like is communication. It's easy to communicate confidentially. You don't have to worry now about sending a PLP by email, which you're not supposed to be doing, and then the name of the student, and then do we put initials, or how do we do? You don't do that anymore because you can do it confidentially through the system. And so people have said this is fantastic. They
Wow,
love
great.
that. It's much easier to communicate. And the other thing, let me think all of a sudden, what was the other thing? The other thing is that everything about the student is in one place. So you don't have to run around and say, who has this document? Does the resource teacher have it? Does the teacher have it in her cabinet? Is it at the school office, or where is this information? Everything is there. And so, and they said, and I can access it when I'm home or when I'm at work. So when I'm home, I can actually, if I'm home and I want to work on a student's PLP, I can sit down in my home and work on the student's PLP. And then I'm wondering about something, I can go get that information. So that they loved. Those are the two major things that came out.
That's fantastic to hear, because when I give presentations to districts or boards that are thinking about, transitioning to special programs, I would say probably the two biggest things I talk about are what you just touched on. So I'm glad that the ability to easily communicate and collaborate, within the system, not having it be an extra step that I have to go out to my email or I have to download documents. And, again, like you said, which is not secure anyway, but being able to just do that as part of the workflow. And then there's that other piece, which is just a centralized location for all of this information. So you're not pulling it from here or pulling it from there. You need something, it's all in one place. When you're even working with parents, or you're starting, you're going to schedule a meeting, you know exactly where it's going to be. And that repository just continues to build over time. And I think it's really beneficial also as, students articulate from one grade to another, then the next teacher has all that history and they can see those things that have happened. So
exactly.
okay.
Yes.
I'm glad that you mentioned those because it reinforces that I'm actually giving the right message, and then it's a real to give when I have those conversations.
And I think that's something that schools, because we were working on paper documents, they hadn't realized those advantages with such a system, is because it was just, we'll have the document, we'll have data, or we'll have the document somewhere, secured, but it's way more than just that.
You don't know what you don't know, right?
That's exactly. Yep.
How about compliance? Or how do you feel about keeping things compliant utilizing the system? Because that's kind of a love-hate relationship. So, you've got these with teachers, I've learned, you've got these required fields, you've got things that you have to complete. You maybe missed one or two, or you were going to maybe come to that. So how do you feel about sort of the checks and balances, the validations, I guess is a good way to say it, when you're working through the system?
Well, and that was one of the most important parts of what we had to do when we were developing, right? So what do we require? What do we not require? And who has access to what? So that's, at our level, that's one of the most important things, is to get that right, so that when it gets to teachers, it just flows. So getting right, what are the required fields and who has access to doing what? And I think we've got that pretty well down. I think that's pretty good. One of the comments that we've been getting back a few times, that we've gotten back from resource teachers especially, have said that they really like the fact that you can't finalize a document if you haven't finalized the required fields.
Right.
Because they have a tendency to want to go finalize, and then it says you haven't finished this, and they say, I haven't? Oh my God. And then they go and they finish it. And so that has come up a few times, is, all right, I guess I thought I was done, but I guess I'm not done. So it just helps them, make sure they have all their steps done. So it came back as a positive comment. I didn't hear anything negative about it.
That's fantastic. Well, I know you're probably crazy busy. In fact, I'm positive of it. Before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we close out today?
Through the consultation that we're doing, we asked the people who are answering, and we have teachers and resource teachers and school principals who are answering. And we're consulting them in two different ways. Some of it is a live consultation like we're doing here, but another one is through a form document, so they can just fill out questions. And the first question we ask them is to give an overall evaluation of their experience, and out of 5 stars. And so far, we've gotten 4 stars out of 5. That's our average so far. I mean, we've only consulted maybe a quarter of the people so far, but I still think that's a pretty good number, is a 4 out of 5. So I think so far things are really looking good.
You take it for a new system. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jeanne, you have been wonderful. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that after the last couple of years, having talked to you, probably it's been a couple of years since
I think so. Yeah.
That it's gone so well, and that you're at 4 out of 5 stars. Maybe the next time we talk, we'll be 5 out of 5 stars.
Who knows?
we can hope. One can hope.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for taking the time out. Please let us know if there's anything you need. We're always here to help. Thank you for being a partner, and just have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks. And you too. And Allie too.